आप्यायन्तु ममाङ्गानि वाक्प्राणश्चक्षुश्रोत्रमथो बलमिन्द्रियाणि च सर्वाणि सर्वं ब्रह्मोपनिषदं माहं ब्रह्म निराकुर्याम् मा ब्रह्म निराकरोत् अनिराकरणमस्त्वनिराकरणं मे अस्तु तदात्मनि निरतेय उपनिषत्सु धर्मास्ते मयि सन्तु ते मयि सन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Welcome everyone, and nice to see all of you. This is the second talk on what is that? The essence of the Kenopanishad. I called it a thunderbolt for Lord Indra, more in keeping with the kind of paradoxes with which this Upanishad plays throughout the text. For Indra's Ayudha, the weapon of choice for Indra is Vajra, thunderbolt. And so here he himself is shocked by all his assumptions being shaken up. We talked about that in the orientation class. So that is what is required for this knowledge to make some kind of an entryway into the heart. That is what is required, because otherwise what happens is that there is some kind of a feeling of business as usual, which is what this Upanishad interrupts. It interrupts the complacency, it interrupts this feeling I know already and I'm going to yet have one more Upanishad in the bag and or under the belt, or whatever metaphor you want to use here. And so this is something which is every Upanishad excels in certain ways of giving the teachings, and this Upanishad's claim to fame, or the unique aspect of the Kenopanishad, is to just scramble the mind. It makes an omelette out of the mind. This is what it is. You just don't know what, all the notions, everything, it just are literally one is blown away. Like even Lord Indra, as we will see later on, was blown away by these teachings, which he encountered up close and personal in a very different way than we are encountering it right now. Why? Simply because he is a celestial and he deserves some special treatment. He didn't have to log into Zoom. But in another Upanishad, just so that you don't think he's getting off easily, in another Upanishad, he had to do Gurukula Seva for 101 years and, stay in the ashram of Lord Prajapati and make cow dung patties there. So you see, there he had what was shown is that the regular course, the trajectory of disciplehood, discipleship, etc., was illustrated. Here, because he's a celestial being, he gets some little privileges. We'll see what those are later on. So, the word Upanishad, just before we enter the text, a few things to just keep in mind. The word Upanishad itself is a, tells what it does. And in that sense, it is not different from other Sanskrit words, where the meaning of the word is embedded in the word itself. Anilaha. Anilaha na nilayati iti anilaha. That which doesn't stay in one single place ever. What is that? Vayu, wind. In fact, the word vayu, vati iti vayu, that which blows is the wind. That which doesn't stay in one place is the wind. And another meaning for, Agni, fire, analaha. Alam na vidyate yasya. The one who doesn't know the meaning of the word enough. And this is the situation with fire. You give it one forest to eat, it doesn't say, oh my god, I'm full. No. And neither the fire does not say, how much ghee are you putting? I'm sorry, I'm having cholesterol problems. No such problems. It keeps on, you keep saying swaha and Agni keeps on taking it in. So, the one who doesn't know the meaning of enough. So, like that, in Sanskrit, it's a very unique thing. The meaning of the words are embedded in the word itself. And the word Upanishad is no exception. The root verb here, dhatu, is shadlr, shad. Shad, to dissipate. Visharana, gati, avasadanayoho. Visharana, gati, avasadanam. So these are the three meanings. Visharana, dispersion. Avasadanam means destruction. And then gatihi, taking, leading, going. So to this shad, which has these three meanings, two prefixes are added and one suffix. And the prefixes that are added are upa. As we know, when you spell it, you see upa is a prefix and ni is also a prefix. But there is no suffix because it ends in shad. There is a silent suffix. Quip pratyayanta. The suffix is quip. And what does this quip do? It does something and then goes away. It makes the Upanishad into an agent noun. So the Upanishad now becomes in English Upanishadar, the one who destroys, the one who dissipates, and the one who leads. But where is the er suffix? You see, in every agent we don't have er suffix. The one who drives, driver. The one who thinks, thinker. The one who eats, eater. The one who drinks, drinker. The one who cooks. You can't say cooker unless you're referring to the vessel in which the cooking is made. But here you cannot use the word cooker for the agent of cooking. So in English also we have like a quip pratyaya. The ER is almost, what is the word for it? Assumed, understood without it being there. Chef, cook. Even in French also, chef. You don't say chauffeur or whatever the French version is. You say chef. You say cook. So to Upanishad, that which cooks, no, not that which cooks here, that which does three things. Visharati, disperses. Disperses what? Self-ignorance, along with its babies and grandbabies in the form of stubborn notions, fears, tears, all kinds of things. Along with its broods, anything you don't want, it disperses. Mind you, in samsara we see things that disperse, but then after a while they come back. The fog disperses in the morning, and then again in the evening it comes back. Maybe this dispersal is like that. It just, you know, it'll come back. That's why the second meaning, avasadayati, which means uproots without a trace, because it takes care of the cause. It disperses wrong notions connected to the I, connected to the world, the Jagat, connected to Ishvara. How? By addressing the cause. Because the notions are many. One notion goes, another one will come, third one will come, fourth one will come. But the cause is of all those notions. The breeding ground of all those notions is just one thing and one thing alone, called Atma Ajnanam, ignorance of the I centered on the self. Ignorance centered on the self. That is what has to be dismissed, dispersed, uprooted along with the cause. And then finally what? What is this? You're using violent metaphors. If somebody says disperses, uproots, takes out all these things. Here, it gently leads. Gatihi, third meaning. The Upanishad, she, it's a feminine, word, and gently leads. Leads who? You. To what? Yourself. Whereas, who else? It leads you back to yourself. A U-turn. It makes you turn around from where you were headed. Where were you headed? All dead ends. Barking up wrong trees. Going down cul-de-sacs that look promising in the beginning and then end in a ditch at the end. No exit. Some kind of a dead end. So one dead end you encounter, disappointment, you walk back. Another dead end you encounter, you walk back. But if it is a life filled with dead ends, which is what the pursuit of the finite is, we saw that last night. And then what happens? What happens to the person? It leaves the jiva deadened. That's what it is. Too many dead ends leaves you deadened. No, no hope for anything else. And leaves one exhausted in the wake of this understanding that I am just going in the wrong way all the time. So the Upanishad is like a guide. You put the hand on its shoulder and it leads you out of these various cul-de-sacs, rabbit holes, where you went to chase the squirrels like a dog, the squirrels of raga and dvesha. You just, like you can't take a dog for a walk. In fact, the dog takes you for a walk. And it may have you may have taken it to obedience school. The obedience school only works until the squirrel is sighted. And then after that it just goes off. And you need to have strong arms. Otherwise you have to let go of the leash. And then you have to run after the dog. So the raga dveshas are something like that. You take them to obedience school, which is the family, which is Vedanta classes, whatever it is. In sequence, of course. And then after that, one raga dvesha it sees, and then it goes down the wrong end and gets stuck there. This is the plight of the jiva. And so the jiva is gently brought back. Where? Brahma gamayati. Leads you back to yourself. Which self? The crying self that I wanted to get away from? No. The self that is the subject matter of the Upanishads, Brahma. Brahma means limitlessly big, huge, free, without any any kind of constrictions. Beautiful. So first it makes you shed all wrong notions, then it uproots the cause of the wrong notions, and then it takes you back to yourself as the free, happy person that you want to be, which you already are. So in English, I suppose you would call it Upanishad because it makes you shed the wrong notions. That is also nice, wonderful. And so this is, this is the word shadlr with the agent noun quip, which is which is a silent suffix, which has done its job and gone away. So the one that the agent of that knowledge which makes you shed wrong notions about the I, about oneself, and then what does it do and introduces you to the truth of yourself as Ishvara, Upanishad. Then there are two prefixes, as I told you, upa, ni, upa, samipe. So the word upa means near, and the prefix upa shows you how does it manage to do this, how does it manage to disperse wrong notions, and how does it manage to dismiss all these wrong conclusions about the I, and then how does it manage to take me back to Brahman, is given in the word upa. Upa means the subject matter of the Upanishad is very, very near. Like they write in the side view mirrors on the cars, objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. So the word near means what? Near to what? From where you're sitting, the computer or the device on which you're watching this class is near. And then, that where you're sitting is near to the town where you're in, and that is near from the standpoint of the country. The word near keeps shifting, shifting, shifting. Near is not always in one place. Near is a relative term. That which is near now can be far later. So what do we do? So here, that's why I said the word upa really means you, that which is the nearest. So it makes you shed notions about what? You, that which is near to you, yourself. That which is dear to you, yourself. It makes you shed notions about yourself that are wrong. It makes you disperse all those ideas. It takes away your self-ignorance. And then the prefix ni stands for nishchayena. It's a promise of the Shastra that if you study the Shastra, for sure you will lose the ignorance. Nishchayena. This is the Upanishad. This is the word Upanishad. And then we have many Upanishads. And people count all these 108 Upanishads, there is some schema by which we have, by which these 108 and all these are talked about. But we study about 10 of them, traditionally speaking. Because the idea is that if you study 10 of them, then what happens is that you're able to study all others and you're able to understand the purport of them, because the purport of them is very, very similar, even though, as I said, each Upanishad specializes in some particular way of giving the knowledge, a particular pedagogy, a particular methodology, a particular emphasis, a particular thing to an example, etc. A story that illustrates something, an allegory, etc. But they all do this dispersion, uprooting, and taking you back to Brahman for sure. And the reason these 10 are studied is because Adi Shankara has written what are called commentaries, bhashya commentaries. And the bhashya has something, beautiful. Why? Because it's the only link to how the ancients translated and understood this body of knowledge and applied it, assimilated this knowledge in their own lives. Otherwise, we have no link to the past. Adi Shankara was like a brilliant comet that just graced the firmament of this knowledge for a short 32-year lifespan. And in that short span of time that was allotted to him, he did a big service of writing copiously. He was just a, you know, he was just a tireless writer. He put everything on palm leaf manuscripts, the pedagogy along with the meaning, along with how each mantra of each Upanishad has to be interpreted, the analysis of how he was taught by his teacher and how his teacher was taught by his teacher, all that was put down. A great service for humanity, because even now we can refer to that and see. We know how the ancients were intended us to understand this knowledge and to assimilate it. So he wrote Bhashya for 10 Upanishads. Actually, I should say 11, because the Kenopanishad is blessed with 2 Shankara Bhashyas. That shows that shows its importance in the tradition. Why it should be studied? Because it has a unique pedagogy. This Upanishad is especially meant for people who like to live in their heads, for those heady kinds of people who are very much in love with their thinking process, in love with their minds, in love with their intelligence. For such people, this Upanishad will appeal like anything, because it addresses that. It doesn't take you for granted. It keeps you always just guessing and wanting more. It's just very, very nice. So the Kenopanishad has 2 bhashyas. One is called Pada Bhashya, which is a word by word analysis by Adi Shankara. And the other one is called Vakya Bhashya. I suppose that can be loosely translated as a thematic analysis based on the main themes of the Upanishad. So, in this short time allotted to us in these few classes, I just thought it will be nice to do an overview of the Upanishad. So, if you're looking for a line by line analysis, etc., we can do that sometime in the weekly classes. That's a better place for that. We can start a new class after this. We can do that, not a problem. And all of you are most welcome to attend. But this would just, instead of looking at one word or a mantra or another, followed by the next mantra, this will just give a broad overview of some of the themes, etc. We will be looking at a few salient verses, and I will just summarize the themes, the essence of which, so that instead of studying one mantra, which could also have been done, we could have just taken one mantra and then studied that mantra in depth. But this time we'll do a bird's eye view, so that at the end there is a feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction that something has been achieved. I have studied the Kenopanishad iti. So this belongs to the Sama Veda, a Veda that was the only Veda that was sung rather than chanted. And these the shakhas, the main shakhas of this singing Samaveda are still prevalent to this day. They teach you how to do that. Our priest in the Rishikesh ashram is a Samavedi. And if you go there after Arati, he always offers one or two chants in front of the Lord Gangadhareshwara. It's a wonderful, wonderful to hear. And if you have him chant this Kenopanishad, it will sound very different from the way I am chanting. Because that's a very particular, it's set to a kind of a pre-music. For music, we minimum need 5 notes. This has, the Samaveda has 4 notes. So it's kind of an almost music or pre-music. So this is what the thing is. And it is called Kenopanishad because you have to call it something. And then let us just sometimes you take the first word and then you you just use that word. We have that pratha, we have that custom. You take the first word and like Isha Vasyam Idam Sarvam, Ishopanishad or Isha Vasyopanishad. And then similarly, the first mantra, Kene Shitam Patati Preshitam Manaha. So Kena plus Upanishad, and when Kena and Upanishad join, there is some kind of a coalescing of two vowels, and it becomes Kenopanishad. Kenopanishad. Then there is one more thing about this Upanishad that is important to know before we get our feet wet. And that is that if you are looking for stories in the beginning, like in the Mundaka Upanishad or in the Kathopanishad, the Kathopanishad starts with a dramatic note. On a dramatic note, father son have a nice fight over how the yajna should be performed, and he feels like he should also be offered, and then the father gets angry and says go to hell, and then what happens? And then he goes to Lord Yama. So there is some kind of a akanksha, there is a build up, there is a big build up, like, oh, what's going to happen? Oh, baby Nachi, what happened to what happened to Nachiketa? So small, so much vairagya, all these things. These are the things that attract in the Kathopanishad. Then in the Mundaka Upanishad, what is highlighted is the Guru Parampara, Guru Shishya Parampara, starting with Lord Brahmaji, who gave this knowledge to his son Atharva, who then gave this knowledge to Satyavaha, who then gave this knowledge to Angir, who then gave this knowledge to Angiras. And then this guru called Angiras is then approached by Shaunaka, who says, teach me that thing, knowing which everything is as good as known. Then again in the 6th chapter, 7th chapter and 8th chapter of the Chandogya Upanishad, also belonging to the Samaveda, we have stories, delightful stories. Who doesn't know the story of Shvetaketu? Shvetaketu going to his father finding him insufferably proud. Anuchana Mani, the one who has a lot of pride about his chanting abilities. Anuchana means repetition, repeating the Veda. And then how he's brought down, completely floored by the dissemination of the knowledge. Then again, it's very nice to see the dialogue between Sanat Kumara, the teacher, Lord Dakshinamurti's direct disciple, and Narada, sage Narada, who again is a know-it-all. Literally, he knows everything except that which is the truth of the self, and he continues to grieve. And then again in the 8th chapter we have a delightful tale of Prajapati and who is approached by Indra, our same Indra. Prajapati is approached by Indra, and then we have Also, one more gate crasher for this knowledge, Virochana, who is the king of the Asuras, some kind of devotees gone wrong, demonic beings. And then, if we are looking for these kinds of stories and these chatpata means full of, what is that? Full of pizzazz, full of masala, dialogues, and stories, one will be disappointed because this is an Upanishad that operates on a very different level. This is for a overtly contemplative being, a being that is contemplative by nature and is given to pondering on questions such as the one asked by the student in the Upanishad. And so this is not the, you will not find a story. Later on you will find something to illustrate that which has already been taught. But it doesn't begin with a story, there is no drama, there is only Rama. There is only that which is Ramante Yasmin Yoginah, in that in which all the yogis revel. That Atma Tattva, Atma Rama is what is directly given. By now you would have understood that all Upanishads are in the form of dialogues. Because, precisely because these notions about the I have to be dismissed. Wrong conclusions, wrong notions. I am as good as this body. Finite notions connected to the self. I am as good as this mind. I am insufferable. I am an idiot. Nobody loves me. All these things have to be dismissed. So, if there are notions connected to the I, and if the dismissal is warranted, then the dialogue is inevitable, anivarya. Because if there are notions that I am holding on to very dearly, then they, then they need to be pried away. And in the process of the teacher and the teaching, prying away these wrong notions, the student will have doubts, vagueness, error, and so the dialogue is a must. Sometimes, like I have told you, we know the names of the teacher, we know the names of the students. Shvetaketu, Uddalaka, Narada, Sanat Kumara, and then who else, and Shaunaka, Angiras. We know the names of the students and the teachers. And in some other Upanishads, we don't know the names of either the students or the teachers, but we know they are there. Like in the Brahmanandavalli of the Taittiriya Upanishad. We know the presence of the students and the teachers are there. How? Because a question is asked. A question is asked. Aho vidvan amul lokam pretya kaschana gacchati. That plutaswara, that e, that elongation, prashnarthe, in the sense of a question. And so that is a nod to the presence of the student in the Upanishad, student or students. And then the teacher responds. You see, it is still a dialogue. Because this is not based on belief. Certain things you have to believe. There is no other way. That there is going to be a next life. It's a non-verifiable belief. That there is heaven, non-verifiable belief. That it is a pleasant place, non-verifiable belief. That I will go there because of the good karma, non-verifiable belief. Anything other than you, if you are which is not locally available, if you are told, is always a non-verifiable belief, where you require shraddha, because the Veda says so, it must be true. I'll give it the benefit of doubt. But you are Brahman. This is not a belief, it's a fact. It's a fact that can be completely unfolded and completely given, because Brahman is Purna, partlessly whole. And so it cannot be given part by part, it is always completely given and completely received. In fact, no other thing can be completely communicated in the universe other than the fact that you are the whole. That's the only thing that can be completely communicated. Think about it. If an alien came to the earth, these days everything is in the news, that there are some radio frequencies that they are hearing and all kinds of things are there. And so if an alien came and then you wanted to introduce them to gulab jamun, you wanted to describe to them laddu, some kind of a circular ball of calories, but how are you going to say this is sweet? Gulab jamun, sweet. Laddu, sweet. They say, what is sweet? Provided you can communicate with them, okay? What is sweet? And you're just left licking your lips. Sweet. But Brahman can be totally given because it is you. It is the truth of you. It is the content of you. It is the essence of you. It is nothing other than you. Therefore, it is completely given, without a shadow of doubt, without the shadow of error or vagueness. Because it is not based on belief and it is not other than you. And so therefore, this this is what makes this knowledge so much, so essential in life for one's sanity and for one's liberation. From what? From the notion that one is finite. And so, this Upanishad gets straight away into the subject matter. There are students, because the teacher gives a quiz in part 2, we'll see that. Very nice quiz, Vedanta quiz. And then there is a teacher. We don't know their names, but they do interact a lot because question answers are there, and we will see that. But the teacher is not is not into chit chat. The teacher is not into hello, how are you, how was your day, what goes, what's your life story. No such thing. And neither are the students. The students are also, looks like they are a serious bunch. And there is more than one, because in the quiz, different responses are coming. And so this is just a direct thunderbolt of knowledge coming and dispersing all kinds of notions right at the start. And the student here, student or students, whoever asked this question, because the Upanishad begins with a question. So the student or students are very, very, what's the introspective? That's a very good way of putting it. They're very, very introspective because they have a certain penchant, a pondering on certain kinds of questions that normally are not engaged in the course of a lifetime, in the course of a regular person's lifetime. What are the kinds of preoccupations that a regular person, an ajnani in samsara has? Someone who is not exposed to Vedanta, what are the preoccupations? How to become rich and famous, how to influence people and have friends, how to do this, how to do that. Where should I begin doing this in order to get that? How do I have to understand this? All these things. This is what is the most people's preoccupations. What should I do tomorrow? Where should I go? All these things. And so therefore, Here, the student's question goes to the heart of the matter, and it is very clear that the student has been contemplating on this for some time. And it's not something sudden and recent, because there is a certain way in which the question is put, which is deliberate. So let us see the question itself. ॐ केनेषितं पतति प्रेषितं मनः केन प्राणः प्रथमः प्रैतियुक्तः केनेषितां वाचमिमां वदन्ति चक्षुश्रोत्रं क उदेवो युनक्ति केन इषितम्. Ishitam, ish, to desire. Ish has other meanings. Gatau in the sense of movement, but that's not the meaning here. Ish has another meaning also, abhipsa, which means repetition. So that's also not the meaning here, vipsa. And so ish here means what? Desire. Kena ishitam. Shankara gently points out that the word ishitam is chandasam. Chandasam means it is a poetic license for a usage that is not there in the regular grammar. According to regular grammar rules, it would have become eshitam, not ishitam. So, but doesn't matter. Here, since it's got poetic license, we'll read it as Ishitam, but understand what is meant is past passive participle. By whom? Kena, by whom? Desired by whom? Patati, falls. Desired by whom? And one more thing is there, one more word. Preshitam, directed by whom? Same word, ish. Forcibly directed by whom? Guided by whom? And then desired by whom does the mind fall? Fall where? Into various thoughts. Very beautiful way of putting this question. It shows that the mind doesn't seem to have a say on which thought it is going to think. If the mind knew what thought it is going to think next, you can tell me your please tell me your next thought. Are you going to tell me your next thought? You will say, I don't know what my next thought is going to be. I have no clue. And so if you have no clue what your next thought is going to be, that means the thoughts are not coming into the mind. The mind is falling from one thought to another, leapfrogging. Very interesting way of putting it. So the thoughts are entering the mind means the mind is allowing them, filtering them, and being the agent of letting in certain thoughts and keeping out certain other thoughts. But sometimes you have certain thoughts, then you say, oh my God, I shouldn't think like this, and then you have to go away from that trajectory. Those thoughts, where did they come from? How did the mind go there? Kena ishitam. Is there a force? Is there a will? Because obviously my will, it is beyond the scope of my own will as a being, as a conscious being, as a jiva. So is there some other being whose will is threading my mind through various thoughts, sometimes without rhyme and without reason? And then at least the reason is there, rhyme may also be there, but that which is not immediately discernible to me, there is a subtle reason. And so kena ishitam, kena preshitam. Preshitam means consciously directed, intelligently directed by someone, or desired by whom does the mind go to various places in the thought world. And then Prathamah Prana. And this prana that came first. How did the prana? Prana means respiration here, and all other functions also, the vital airs, but here prana, respiration primarily. Kena, Prathamah Prana, the one that came first. Because as soon as the baby is born, what does it do? It bawls. The first breath it takes, it cries. That's how we know it is breathing. So, Kena Prana, by whom is this prana that came first is directed. Praiti goes in, goes out. Prakarshena eti. Yuktaha, and it joins with inhalation and exhalation. This prana makes it possible, and then it bathes and makes other functions possible. It bathes the lungs, it bathes the blood with oxygen, it removes all the toxins. How does it go about its functions? Because I'm certainly not willing here to breathe, because in sleep I'm breathing without will. Again, the mind is keeping on going towards thoughts. Where is my will here? And then, Kena Ishitam Vacham Imam Vacham Vadanti. And these words keep coming out. How do the words come? How do they stay in the mind? How do they get formed at various places of articulation in the tongue? How do they ensue forth? And miraculously, how are they understood? And how do I say, oops, I shouldn't have said that. Oh no, I should take that back, but too late. Visrishta Banavat, like even an arrow that has been released, you cannot recall it. Similarly, the words are also released, gone. How does this happen? And then, even if I speak consciously and deliberately, after thinking, what is that magic skein, a thread as it were, that connects the thought to the speech? That connects the thought to the speech, the words to the deed. What is this connection? Because I certainly didn't make it. Sometimes, as I think I speak, there is some connection, but I didn't make it. But it is there. And sometimes, two people, they are going somewhere, they are the greatest of friends, and both of them have a same idea at the same time. And what is that idea? Let's have ice cream. Let's have ice cream. That is the idea. And they say it at the same time. Let's have ice cream. Correct? How? How did these words come out? How did these words come out? So interesting and so magical. Directed by whom? Desired by whom do these words come? They shine briefly in the mind, and then they are called speech, and then they tumble out, and then sometimes they tumble out in very cohesive, sometimes they tumble out like a word salad, that is also there. And then sometimes they are slow, halting, deliberate, sometimes they are fast, 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 quick, 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 as though one is catching a train. And how is this happening? Kena ishitam vacham imam vadanti. And then finally, chakshuhu. Chakshuhu means what? Eyes. Shrotram, ears. Kaudevaha. Which deity? Devaha here means two meanings are there. One is, which is this effulgent being from div, to shine? Who is this effulgent being that is that makes the eyes see? Who is this effulgent being? Not just my eyes, the soulful eyes of a puppy that also sees, the intelligent eyes of a cat that also sees, the lazy, almost unseeing eyes of an alligator which is taking everything in. As soon as something walks, it will just eat. Half of the alligator is just sheer teeth, okay? The other half is the tail. That's what the alligator is. Then the docile eyes of the cow, they also see. And then the 360-degree eyes of the insect, which is given again very interesting, so that it can protect itself, so that as you are coming to give this mosquito moksha, you are the giver of moksha for this mosquito. It is biting and you are aiming your hand to make it into poor thing into chutney. And here mosquito jayati, mosquito is victorious. Why? Because it happens to be the one that is bringing with it the prasada of the dengue virus. Dengue fever, it has already bitten you. Correct? Yeah. So how did it fly away before your hand came upon it? Because it has 360-degree vision. It can look everywhere at the same time. It has multiple lenses, a complex pair of eyes. How is this happening? So no matter where the eyes are, they see. There seems to be a law. That's the next meaning of the word deva. Is there a law here? Adhishthana devata, is there some kind of a presiding law that governs sight? Same thing with hearing. You can discern notes in Indian music. We have a word for the first note. It's called shadja. Short form is sa, the basic note. And so this it is called shadja. Shat swaraha jayante yasmat, which is the birthplace of 6 swaras. 6 other notes are born from this note. So if you have a discerning ear, when you hear the sa being played, all the other notes are embedded in it. Perhaps they could hear that. The rishis who came up with this system of music, perhaps they could hear that. They could hear all the notes in this one note, in the basic primal note. How is that possible? How do these ears go about their tasks? How does this happen? And how do the ear, how does it communicate with the sound? How does it pick up the sound? How does it discriminate between various sounds? Even an animal knows. You're disciplining your dog, the dog knows. You shout, you talk in a stern tone, the dog goes like this on the floor and looks guilty. It doesn't know what it has done, but it knows you're mad. And then there is some kind of a synergy between your words. Certain words you cannot say in front of a dog. You cannot say ball. You cannot say walk. All these things are laden words because it knows these words. And some dogs even know how to spell. I went to somebody's house and they said we can't even spell. I said, no, come on, the dog doesn't know how to spell. They said, watch, wait and watch. and they just casually said WALK, and immediately the dog started to go berserk with excitement because it knew how to spell. And it knew how to also say spell CAT. As soon as they said CAT, it would start growling, looking around and growling. Where did this where did this being come? It would do that. And so this is how do the sounds get make sense? How is there melody? And how is there on the opposite end of the continuum some kind of a terrible cacophony? Because of this cacophony, I can understand the melody, or maybe because of the harmony, I can understand the cacophony. How does this all happen? You see, this is a beautiful question. Not an ordinary series of questions. It's a very, very deeply thought out question by the student. Because again, this is not how, what am I going to eat today? Which movie shall I see today? None of this. This is going straight to the heart of that which powers this body mind sense complex. And yesterday we saw how the kartritva buddhi, that I am an agent of action, is the cause of sorrow. The notion, there are many wrong notions. And then there is the cherry on top notion, two cherries. One is kartritva buddhi, I am the agent of action, and the other is bhoktritva buddhi, I am the recipient of the results of action. These are the two red flags. And so we saw that. We saw how that keeps one in samsara. We saw this in detail. We saw how this is why one keeps on going in samsara, going, without reprieve, keeps on going, and then after that what? Dead end. This is what it is. Then one life gone, another life that gone. One is still a karta in this life, another life karta, another life, third life karta. This is this is the granddaddy of all notions. Pitamaha, the granddaddy of all notions, wrong notions. That which is, pinning the jiva in this samsara is the wrong notion that I power my own life, that I am responsible for all these things. I am the actor, I am the recipient I am the producer of the result of actions, and I am the recipient of the result of actions. These are pervasive delusions. And that's why I said this knowledge given in the Kenopanishad right at the start is extremely sophisticated, because it bypasses all other things, such as, one should be a karma yogi, one should be responsible for one's actions and the results thereof, dharma has to come, all these things, because dharma is already assumed. It's already assumed that one is mature enough to study this Upanishad. It's very easy to get stuck at the level of this karma. Dharma, the opposite side of dharma is karma. Because how do you express dharma? Through karma alone. So the other side of the dharma coin is action and results of action. So therefore it is very easy to consider the means to an end itself. Karma yoga, dharma, all these things are means to understanding the truth of the self, not that they are ends in and of themselves. They just cannot be. There is a higher and a more elevated vantage point other than being hooked to the results and the doership. all the time. And that vantage point is not visible unless one is able to ask these kinds of questions. That is the purport of the message. That's the message of this, and the tatparya, the purport of this question. That we are going to let go for right now all these things that keep one in a level of complacency, keep one tethered to karma, actions, and karma phala, results of action. So, who is the agent? The student is asking. There must be some agent. And if that agent is there, then does that agent have certain desires that overpower my own desires? Because maybe I want to do something, but then I'm thinking of something I don't want to think about. So that means what? Then there must be someone else who is overriding my own desires and making me think of something other than that. So maybe that's what it is. Or maybe there is a niyanta, a controller, a director of sorts, who is directing this show, this wonderful show in this body mind sense complex. Think of how evolved the question is, and think of how mature the student is. In the question itself, there is so much Vedanta. Even before the student has started to study, even before the teacher has started to teach. It's amazing. So there are 3 or 4 things that are very, very, very evident in this set of questions. The first one is that that one is not the agent of action. One is not the agent of action because even one's own body mind sense complex is out of one's own control. One is completely, it's out of one's own control. What to talk of things in the jagat or other people? Forget all that. One's own body is out of one's own control. One's own mind is directed by someone else. And so this is what the first thing one has to see, that there is there is a there is something that is directing everything in this universe, starting with the body mind sense complex. And then, you know, then the next thing to see is that there is something which is subtle. There is a subtle mechanism. We are not talking of a gross mechanism. We are talking of the presence of something subtle, sensed yet not objectifiable. That is why that is why it begs the question, who is this entity? Because I don't see anybody controlling my mind. I don't see anybody controlling my organ of speech. I don't find anybody controlling my sight, my senses. So, who is this being? The being is sensed, yet the being is not visible, not available for sight, not available for any means of knowledge, not available for perception through the sense organs, not available for inference. Otherwise, I wouldn't be asking this question. I would be inferring something. Not available for comparing to any other entity, not available. Again, I sense it, so it is not absent, it is not shunya. So there is something here, and what is that is not understood by me. So therefore the teacher is asked this question. These are the two, these are the two messages about this question that is hidden in the question. So much knowledge, because we have some very good hints. Devaha yunakti, an effulgent being. And if there is an effulgent being, It is, it is a very important question. What is the important question? Is this being, where is this being located? Within several apostrophes. Where is this being naturally? If it is a conscious being, where is it located? And if this being is located somewhere, is it outside of what I call I? Is it outside of this body mind sense complex, or is it within this body mind sense complex? If it is within this body mind sense complex, then it is trapped by the body mind sense complex. If it is outside of the body mind sense complex, then how is it intimately involved with all the functions of this body mind sense complex? Subtle functions, pranic functions, speech, sight, sound, hearing, thinking. What is going on here? Very, very wonderful question. And so the teacher, the teacher should have just said, yes, there is a being, and it is you. But the teacher answers the spirit of the question, and the answer is a little roundabout. Let us see what the teacher says. Shrotrasya shrotram, manaso mano yat, vachoha vacham, sa upranasya pranah, चक्षुषश्चक्षुः अतिमुच्य धीराः प्रेत्यास्मान् लोकाद् amrita bhavanti. And here is where our the paradoxes start. Here is where the mind turns into mush, because that is, of course, very intentional. It's an intentional pedagogical tool of this Upanishad, is to scramble the mind completely. And what does what does the teacher says? It. What is the it? Yat, it. This thing that you are asking for. This being or this thing that you are asking for, which is responsible for all this, is what? The eye of the eye. Sorry, we'll go according to how it says. The ear of the ear, the mind of the mind, the speech of the speech. And then what? The prana of the prana, the eye of the eye. And then, by now one is blinking and, one is wondering, what is this eye of the eye? Two things one is wondering. What on earth is this eye of the eye, ear of the ear, mind of the mind? What is all this? And not only that, then why should I know this? I have better things to do. Even during the pandemic, I have lots of other things to do. I don't need this. And what am I going to get out of this? And the teacher here is very, very erudite, extremely clever. Immediately the Phalashruti is given in the second sentence itself of the answer to the question. Knowing this, jnatva, we have to infer that word is not there. Jnatva, knowing this, atimuchya dhiraha, the wise become wise knowing this. Knowing this wisdom, the wise, really, the people become wise. Dhihirati dadati iti dhiraha, the ones who have, who can share what they know with others. They not only know, they can teach. These kinds of people, what happens to them? Atimuchya, having crossed over this finitude and the penchant for finitude, having transcended this loop between karma and karma phala, action and reaction and result of action and more heartache and more action and more sorrow and more fear and more action. Having crossed over that, what happens? Dying to this world of finitude, they are free. Freed from samsara while living, and when they depart from this body, they are not born again. They are immortal. They are immortal, which is what everybody wants to be. That's why all those berries sound very, very enticing, because one wants to live longer and longer and longer and healthier and healthier and healthier. This is what the whole thing is. So, departing this world, they are they are free. Even while they were in this world, they were worshipped as jnanis, and then when they dropped the body, they were worshipped as Ishvara, and then when they dropped the body, they continue to be Ishvara. This is the answer. So we'll go into the depth of this answer, because if these first two verses are understood deeply, then everything will go a little faster, because the premise of the whole Upanishad rests on these two verses, the initial question and then the response of the teacher. So these two we'll be studying in a little detail, and then we'll go a little faster, it will go. Okay, at least that is the hope. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ